It started with a glance. Not a normal one, a glance that lingered just a second too long and changed everything I thought I knew about right and wrong. That weekend at the lake house was supposed to be like all the others. Beers on the dock, old jokes around the fire pit, lazy afternoons in the water. But this time it was different. Claire was there, Tyler's mom. And I know how that sounds, but you weren't there. You didn't see her that weekend. You didn't feel what I felt? When she smiled at me that first night? It wasn't just that she looked good, though. She did. She looked incredible. Divorce had softened something in her. Not made her weaker, but freer. There was this raw, open energy to her, like she'd stopped trying to be perfect for everyone and was finally just. Herself and God. That made her magnetic. Her laugh. That night was lighter than I remembered, warmer. And when she poured me a glass of wine, when her hand brushed mine, I felt it. A spark. The kind that runs through your veins and makes you stupid. The kind that gets people into trouble. Tyler passed out early. Always overdid it on the first night, classic move. I stayed up on the porch alone, looking out over the dark lake, letting the silence settle in. Then I heard the sliding door. Open, soft footsteps, and there she was, Claire, carrying a bottle of red and 2 glasses. "Can I join you?" she asked. And I just nodded like an idiot, trying not to stare at the way her sweatshirt hung off one shoulder. She sat close, too close, and when she handed me my glass, our fingers touched again. I didn't pull away. We talked for hours. First about school, my job, how I wasn't sure what I wanted out of life. She really listened, not like an adult, humoring a kid, but like she genuinely cared. And when I told her how stuck I felt lately, how invisible, she didn't say some canned response. She just looked at me, eyes soft, and said, "I know exactly what that's like." I think that was the moment I lost the fight with myself. Because suddenly, she wasn't just Claire. My best friend's mom, she was a woman who'd been through things, who saw me, really saw me. And I was a man sitting beside her, aching to be touched. There was a pause, a long silence where everything hung in the air between us. I could have stood up. I could have said goodnight. But I didn't. I just looked at her lips and then up at her eyes, and she didn't look away. She leaned in so slow, so deliberate, tanned for a second. I thought, this isn't happening. She won't, but she did. She kissed me. Or maybe I kissed her. I don't even know anymore. All I remember is the taste of wine, the way her fingers slid into my hair. The sound she made when I pulled her closer. We broke apart like we were afraid someone had seen us, but the lake was still and dark and quiet. She stared at me, breathing, hard lips parted. Then she whispered, "We shouldn't have done that." I nodded, heart pounding. "Yeah," I said. "We shouldn't have." But neither of us moved. Her hand was still on my thigh. My skin burned where she touched me. She looked torn between guilt and hunger, and I knew right then I was already in too deep. This wasn't just a heat-of-the-moment kiss. This was the start of something complicated. Something I wasn't ready for. I went to bed that night with her taste still on my tongue, my body on fire, and my mind spinning. Tyler was snoring down the hall, completely unaware that the line had been crossed. I stared at the ceiling in the dark and tried to tell myself it was a mistake. Just a kiss, just a moment. But the truth, I didn't regret it, not for a second, and that scared the hell out of me. Asterisk, the next morning was pure hell. I woke up early, heart pounding, still tasting Claire on my lips, still feeling the rush of her hands on me. And then the guilt slammed into me like a truck. I was sitting at the kitchen table drinking coffee that tasted like ash, trying to act normal while Tyler flipped pancakes like nothing had happened. Claire came in wearing a robe tied tight at the waist, her hair still damp from the shower. She smiled, cool, casual, but her eyes flicked to mine just a beat too long and everything in me clenched. I couldn't eat, couldn't sit still. She brushed against my shoulder while reaching for a mug, and it sent a jolt through me like I was plugged into something electric. The whole day I tried to tell myself it wasn't going to happen again, that it had been a mistake, heat of a moment, a spark in the dark that would fade in daylight. But the truth, I wanted more. And I knew she did too. Tyler spent the afternoon out on the boat messing with the engine. I made excuses to stay behind, and so did Claire. We kept our distance at first. She read a book on the porch. I laid on the couch pretending to scroll my phone. Bet every so often I'd catch her watching me. And each time I felt it stronger. That pull between us, that thrum under the surface, like the moment before a storm hits. When the sun dipped low and the air got heavy, I knew. I knew we weren't going to stop at a kiss. After dinner, Tyler crashed hard again, probably half from exhaustion, half from the beers he'd downed. Claire and I barely looked at each other as we cleaned up, but my hands were shaking the entire time. When he finally went to bed, I found her in the kitchen again, like the night before. Only this time, she wasn't pouring wine. She was leaning against the counter, waiting. She looked up at me, slow and deliberate, and said, "We can't keep pretending nothing happened." I stepped toward her without thinking. One step, then another, until there was no space left between us. I wanted to say something, anything. Smart or responsible, but all I managed was her name, Claire. And that was all it took. She reached up, gripped the front of my shirt, and pulled me in. This time, there was no hesitation. Her mouth found mine like it belonged there. It wasn't soft, it was hot, fast, breathless. She moaned when I pushed her back against the counter, and my hands were all over her, pulling, lifting, wanting. She tugged me toward her room, and I followed without a second thought. I knew it was wrong. I knew it could wreck everything, but in that moment, nothing mattered but her. The way she gasped my name, the way she arched under my hands. It's the way we melted into each other like we'd been waiting for this for years. We didn't talk much that night. There weren't words big enough for what we did. It was messy and intense, and everything I never thought I'd feel with someone twice my age. She was confident, sure of what she wanted, but also soft, vulnerable, in ways that undid me completely. We moved together like we were drowning, and each other was the air. And when it was over, we just lay there in the dark, breathing hard, skin to skin. I stared at the ceiling, every nerve in my body still on fire, and waited for the crash of guilt. It came, sure, but so did something else. This deep, twisted affection. She turned toward me, brushed her fingers along my chest, and whispered, "This is going to ruin things, isn't it?" I wanted to lie. Wanted to tell her no, that it would all work out somehow. "But I couldn't, probably," I said. "But I don't want to stop." She closed her eyes like she was trying to block the truth out, then nodded slowly. "Neither do I." The silence after that was loud. I don't think either of us knew what we were doing, just that we couldn't stop. We were spinning, lost, in something bigger than lust. Something that felt like comfort and danger wrapped up in the same breath. The next day was torture. Tyler was in a great mood, totally clueless, talking about plans for the next weekend. Claire and I barely spoke, barely looked at each other. I felt like a traitor. Every laugh he gave felt like a slap, every joke like a reminder of how badly I'd crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And yet, under it all, I wanted her again. Even then, even through the guilt. That night, I lay awake while Claire's door stayed shut. I could hear her pacing sometimes, could imagine her lying. In bed, feeling the same tug in her chest that I was, we left the next morning in separate cars. I barely hugged her goodbye. Tyler didn't notice. He just fist bumped me, said he'd text about next weekend. Claire lingered by her car, eyes flicking to mine, but we said nothing. Not with him standing right there. The ride home felt like a hangover I couldn't shake. My phone buzzed once, just a single text from her. I can't stop thinking about last night. Neither could I. And that was the problem. ChatGPT said, I thought the distance would help. That a few days away from Claire would let everything cool down, bring me back to my senses. But it didn't. If anything, being apart from her made everything sharper. Every memory burned hotter. Every silence felt heavier. I kept checking my phone like a damn addict, hoping she'd text, terrified she would. And when she finally did just 7 words, "Can you come over?" "I need to see you," I was already in my car before I finished reading it. Her house was quiet when I got there. I stood on her porch, heart thudding like a war drum, and when she opened the door, she looked tired and beautiful in a way that made my chest ache. No makeup, hair pulled up messily, wearing a worn old sweatshirt that still somehow made me weak. We didn't talk much. I walked in, she closed the door, and we just stood there staring. And then she stepped into me and laid her head on my chest like she'd been waiting for that one touch to breathe again. Her fingers curled into my shirt, and I wrapped my arms around her, holding her like I already knew I was in too deep to ever come back. That night was different from the lake house. Slower, more intense. Not just neat emotion. Don't even know what to call it, but it felt real. She kissed me like she was trying to memorize every part of me. I didn't feel like a kid playing. With fire, I felt like a man being claimed. And I gave her everything, let her pull me into her world without hesitation. Afterward, lying tangled in her sheets, she ran her fingers over my chest and whispered, "You're not just a fling. You know that, right?" I didn't say anything at first. I was scared of how much I wanted that to be true. Finally, I just nodded. "I know you're not either." It was the most honest thing I'd ever said. The weight of it settled between us like a secret, too. Big to name, we kept seeing each other in secret. I made excuse sister groups, overtime at work, anything to keep Tyler from getting suspicious. And somehow, it worked. He didn't notice or didn't want to. Claire and I became something I couldn't define. It wasn't just about sex anymore, though we couldn't keep our hands off each other. It was the way she looked at me when I talked. The way she touched my face when I was stressed. The way she listened. I'd never had that before. It never felt seen like that. I think that's what hooked me more than anything. She made me feel like I mattered. Like I wasn't just some kid trying to figure it out, but someone she needed. And I liked being needed. I started imagining stupid things, used moving away, starting over. A life together where it didn't matter that she was older or that she was my best friend's mom. In those moments, the world shrank to just us, and it felt possible. But reality has a cruel way of creeping in. One night, I showed up at her place late. She opened the door, eyes red and wet. I thought something terrible had happened. It had. "My ex knows," she said, voice barely above a whisper. My stomach dropped. "What?" "He saw us at the lake house. He showed up that morning before we left, Ty. Didn't see him. Ack. But he saw you leaving my room." Ack. Felt cold all over. "Did he tell Tyler?" She nodded. "I don't know exactly what he said, but yes, Tyler knows." The air left my lungs. My heart thudded once, hard, like it didn't know how to beat anymore. I sat down on her couch, head in my hands, trying to understand how everything had unraveled so fast. I thought we'd been careful. I thought we had time. I waited days for Tyler to say something. He didn't. No calls, no texts. I was too scared to reach out, so I just waited in this horrible limbo, knowing it was coming, but still praying it wasn't true. Then he showed up at my place. No warning. He didn't knock, just walked in and looked at me like I was a stranger. "So it's true," he said, voice flat. "You're F***king my mom." I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. He laughed, bitter and sharp. "I mean, what the hell, man? You were like my brother." I tried to explain. Told him it wasn't just about sex, that it was something real, that I hadn't planned for it to happen. But every word I said just made his face colder. "You could have had anyone," he said. "But you went for her." His voice cracked, and then he was gone, slamming the door behind him, leaving me gutted on the floor. After that, everything changed. Claire and I tried to keep seeing each other, but the magic started fading under the weight of everything we'd broken. We still touched, still kissed, still held each other, but now it came with shadows, with guilt, with silence. I started dreading the drive to her house and hating myself for the relief I felt when I left. It wasn't her fault, wasn't even mine. We just couldn't hold it together anymore. We were trying to love each other in a house made of broken glass, and every step we took cut us a little deeper. I don't remember who brought it up first. Maybe her, maybe me, but eventually we both knew it had to end. I told her I loved her, because I did. Still do, in some twisted part of me. And she cried when she said goodbye. I'll never forget the way she looked at me that last time, like she was trying to memorize me too. I walked away that night, feeling like I'd aged 10 years. Like I'd lost two people I loved in one breath. It's been 6 months since I walked out of Claire's house for the last time. And not a single day has passed that I haven't thought about her or Tyler. Sometimes it hits me at the grocery store, or when a song comes on that we used to play during lake trips. Sometimes it's in the middle of the night, waking up with the ghost of her skin still on mine. Heart pounding like it's trying to remember what it felt like to love her without consequences. Other times, it's quieter, a soft ache, a dull reminder that some choices don't just fade with time. They leave marks, permanent ones. Life went on, but I didn't go back to who I was before her. I don't think I ever will. I moved out of the city for a while, tried to bury myself in work, disconnected from old routines and from anyone who knew the truth. It wasn't shame exactly. It was more like loss. Like I'd glimpsed something real and then watched it shatter in my hands, unable to save it. Tyler never reached out. I didn't expect him to. I tried once, wrote a long message, full of apologies and explanations I knew he probably didn't want to hear. I never sent it. What was I supposed to say? That I didn't mean to fall for her? That I hated myself for it and also didn't regret a second of it. He wouldn't understand that. Hell, I barely understood it myself. I just knew that loving Claire had felt like standing in the middle of a wildfire, terrifying and beautiful and completely out of my control. But what hurt the most wasn't the fallout. It wasn't even losing Tyler. It was the way she faded from my life so completely, like she'd never been there at all. She stopped texting, no calls, no more secret smiles. No more "I miss us," whispered in the dark. She disappeared, and I let her. Because we both knew continuing would have only hurt more. Then, last week I saw her again. I was back in town for a friend's wedding. I didn't know she'd be there. How could I? It was a backyard thing, small and casual. I was grabbing a drink when I turned around and saw her across the yard, standing alone, holding a glass of wine in both hands like she was bracing herself against the world. My heart stopped. Literally just stopped. She looked almost exactly the same eyes, same posture. But there was something different in the way she carried herself. Stronger, sharper, like she'd learned how to live without me and didn't need to look back. But she did. She looked right at me. We didn't speak for a while. Just these long, loaded glances from across the party like we were both afraid of what would happen if we got too close. But eventually, the distance closed. She approached me first, slow, cautious, her expression unreadable. "Hey," she said, and just hearing her voice again cracked something in my chest. I wanted to pull her into me, to say every single thing I hadn't had the courage to say, but all I managed was, "Hey." Then we just stood there in silence, watching each other like we were trying to gauge if it was okay to feel what we still felt. She was the one who broke the silence. "You look good," she said. I gave a small laugh. "You too. Really good." She glanced around. "I didn't think you'd be here. I didn't think you'd be here." "Tyler's not coming," she added quickly, almost like a reflex. I nodded. I figured. Then finally we started talking. About nothing at first, work, people we hadn't seen in months. The usual. But it didn't stay light for long. It never could, not with us. I miss you, she said quietly, eyes on her glass. Some days it still feels like you're just down the street. I swallowed hard. I think about you all the time. Her eyes met mine, and for a second I thought she might kiss me again. God, I wanted her to. Wanted to fall back into her like the world hadn't changed, like we hadn't broken it with what we did, but she just sighed and looked away. Couldn't have worked, could it? I shook my head. I don't know. I wanted it to. So did I. She whispered and then came the twist one I didn't see coming. She hesitated, then said, I'm seeing someone. My stomach dropped. Shouldn't have hurt like that, not after all this time, but it did. It's new. She added quickly, he's kind, simple, nothing complicated. Just safe. I nodded, trying not to let my face betray anything. You deserve safe. She looked at me like she wanted to apologize, but didn't know how. Still think about us. I probably always will. I don't want to forget, I said, even if I should. She smiled sadly. Some things aren't meant to be forever. But that doesn't mean they weren't real. We stood there for a while, not touching, not saying anything else. And then someone called her name from across the yard and she turned. Take care of yourself, she said. You too, I replied, and that was it. I haven't heard from her since. I don't know if I ever will. But sometimes, when the nights are quiet and long, I think back to that weekend at the lake house, to the kiss that started it all. And I realized something. She wasn't just my best friend's mom. She was the first person who ever truly saw me. And even though we crossed the line, burned the rule book, shattered trust, ruined what couldn't be undone, I'll never regret loving her, even if the cost was everything.